the planning and zoning meeting, May 13th. We have a roll call. Sammy? The roll call. Everyone's present. How about we have a pledge of allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag. All right, item number 1 is approval of planning and zoning meetings minutes dated February 13th, 2023. Any questions on that? Do I have a motion? So moved. Got a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Item number 2, public hearing to be held and consider proposed text amendment to the Town of Carefree zoning ordinance, 10th publication, and to receive comments from the public. The text amendment included under case number 22-21-TA proposes to modify Article 2 Rules and Definitions, Sections 2.02 Definitions, in order to align with and support the recently passed short-term rental regulations in Carefree. This is a public hearing. Comments will be taken, and one should be reminded that there are 3 minutes. Don't get lassoed down or whatever may happen. So,
Okay, we
Item
ready,
number
Chairman?
2?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Cross. One thing I would like to remind everybody, and I'll try to do the same, is when you do speak, to speak into your microphones. I know it's really a little bit, it's awkward, but it's all part of making sure we capture everything on the recording as well. So, with that said, the agenda item is probably longer read than my actual presentation will be. As many of you know, back in February, Town Council approved the short-term rental ordinance based on recent legislation that gave communities more teeth to manage short-term rentals. It didn't allow them to abolish them because that hasn't been given the rights by the state as of yet. But I think that we put together a really strong ordinance and requirements that now actually has a permit process in place for those that are short-term rental operators as well as users. So what the text amendment that you have in front of you, to support that legislation that we just passed, there were some definitions in the zoning ordinance that supported, mostly related to how many people could occupy a single-family residential or short-term rental. So you saw those definitions for dwelling units, for family in particular, as well as the single housekeeping unit, were updated to, again, align with that new ordinance that we have in place. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about some of this language. I will add that, for example, the family definition in particular that came actually out of state statute. The definition supports additional information in state statute, but it sort of is in line with state statute today. So with that said, I'm happy to answer any questions, or you're welcome to open the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, state that. Can you explain to me?
Thank you.
Can you explain to me in the single housekeeping unit definition, which is the last one on the page, why does the term exclude living situations where an entity or an individual other than the resident provides training or life skill development services on site? That's one. Or 2, provide supervisory, medical, personal, or custodial services to more than 6 adults residing in the dwelling. Can you just explain that to me?
Sure, Chairman, Commissioner Burns. And this ties into really, as we kind of look at our zoning ordinance, really bringing it up to current requirements related to state statute. There had to be an overlapping information that tied to things such as group homes and small care homes that operate in a single family residential setting. So you had to include them as a, quote, family. It ties into the family definition because it all goes back to the fact that those are residential units versus a traditional, for example, an assisted living facility such as out on Pima Road. That's a whole different classification. But we have, either for elderly housing, for behavioral housing, as well as for some mentally challenged housing, that those needed to be considered, quote, family as well, and that kind of builds on the family and then thereby the housekeeping unit.
I'm not a student of the, Mr. Chairman, I'm not a student of the new code, but how is single housekeeping unit used? I mean, we struck it out of dwelling.
Well, we
dwelling,
refined
multiple,
it.
Single family, so I just don't, how does, I did not read all of the new ordinance, but how does that get used that it would have caused a problem for group homes or a residential care facility? Do you know? I mean, off the.
Well,
hate to
I don't, Chairman Cross and Commissioner Burns, I don't know exactly why. It's all part of state statute, how it became redefined within the last, I would say, 5 years.
Okay.
And so, like, the housekeeping unit aspect is kind of more the use, and then it ties into sort of the family definition, which is more a clarified definition of family, and then overall then, of course, ties back into to dwellings.
Okay.
So it's just information that it builds upon each other, but it's more current than we had it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments? I have speakers in?
You can open up the public hearing, sure.
Okay, then we have a public speaking for this item. Jerry Weta?
Chairman Cross, I think they have specific agenda items, I think, noted on their forms.
Well, it says number 2.
Oh,
I think it'll say 21-3.
2, oh. All right, somebody's put number 2 on here for me, I'm sorry.
okay.
All right. Well, in that the case, I have a motion?
Well, so there's no.
There's no other public discussion? No, I don't, that's the only one I had.
Okay.
You have a motion?
I so move.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Now, we go into item number 3 is review and recommendation of the 2023-24 Economic Development Work Plan.
Thank you, Chairman Cross and Commissioners. You know, as we mentioned in the previous meeting, part of the responsibility when we look at economic development and planning, that they do kind of go hand in hand, and that part of that responsibility we've asked for this particular commission is to look at being part of the Economic Development Advisory Board that oversees the activities that I'm working on, because a lot of those are having to do with town center and a lot of planning decisions that need to be made for the town. And I think in economic development, you don't get the opportunity necessarily to always have a really nice opportunity to be able to be transparent with the public with what you're doing. And so this really gives us the opportunity to be able to do that. And so that's when we look at economic development, one of the things that I like to work on is working off 24-month business plans, so we can see what is in front, the activities that I'm going to be working on over the next 24 months, or the things that I'd like to be tackling. A lot of that is going to be consistent with what the council has asked me to do and charged me as part of my responsibility. And but as and how and the things that we focus on, I try to seek and look to get recommendation from the Planning Commission and any input and thoughts about, you know, recommendations to council of things that you think are important that need to be included, and then give the community the opportunity to be able to bring those things up as well. So when we look at the overall, it just seems like right in my face. When we look at the overall goals, I mean, the nuts and bolts of it is that my job is to create diverse revenue streams, particularly sales tax, non-tax revenue for the town of Carefree. And that's to pay for the services that we currently offer, the services that people would like to see. And the other part of that is looking at creating a mix of commercial services that are part of the town, so people can have the services that they like to see, whether it's coffee shop or meat market or those types of activities, and even just going down to the personal services. But all those things can't happen at the expense of the overall quality of life. And so that's why it's very important that we work with the Planning Commission. We work with a lot of different groups to make sure that we're, again, being a small town, how do we accomplish that goal? One of the things that we have been working on is part of this is the destination stay strategy. And this is looking at, we already have Savannah, we do have the Hampton, and one of the things that we have done is we did the general plan amendment for the northwest corner of Tom Darlington and Carefree Highway, and with the goal of that being a high-end resort site. And so the idea there is to be able to have a diversity mix of destination stay that will allow us to do several things. You know, by having a destination stay, we get more sales tax revenue per visitor, so we get not only the 3% sales tax, but we get 3% bed tax. So each visitor that comes and stays is actually spending money here in Carefree versus somebody who just drives in. We reduce traffic by getting destination stay, by not going to the Sedona model where we have to bring a ton of people in to try to support the revenue that we'd like to see. So we get more sales tax per visitor. And then the idea is that how can we develop a retail mix that is more beneficial for residents? And when you have destination stay, they're more likely to want to have those types of shops versus just having, you know, gift shops and whatnot. And so when we look at this, one of the things we're looking at, what's our total revenue capacity for this type of program when we're successful, and that's kind of in that 1.8 to 2 million annual sales tax range of what we're trying to bring into the town. And then the nice thing about this is when we look at destination stay, we're also looking to support our town center. And town center revitalization is something that we've just spent a lot of time on when we went through and completed the redevelopment plan. And that's going to help us put together some programs. But out of that plan, we came up with a lot of things that we're looking to focus on. And one is finalizing and implementing the signage, circulation, and parking plan. And then the rest of this, you've got the list here of things that we're going to be focused on. But I want to just recognize that the big key aspects to what we're focusing are going to be looking at design review guidelines, looking at zoning overlay, signage overlay. That's going to really help with the quality of aesthetic for the town center, and that's going to fit in with the signage, circulation, and parking, so we can, you know, have a better accessibility to parking to businesses, as well as looking at our circulation component that will allow us to have better connectivity not only within the town center, but having better connectivity with the existing neighborhoods and with the rest of the community. And so when we look at what's the value of town center revitalization, it's not just the idea that we're going to be adding on a lot of new businesses. It's the idea that we need to preserve this area. And, you know, when it goes into decline, there's opportunity and revenue to be lost. And so what we want to do is not only maximize the revenue, but also make sure that we're protecting that revenue stream coming into the town. And the other thing that we'll be also looking at is the town hall site itself, and that's going to be a key component. When this town originally was developed by the developers, there's a reason why you take the best site and you put your offices on it, and that when everything else develops, you've got the best site to sell at the end of the day. And that's where the town hall site pretty much sits, right in the center of what was originally town center. And so for us, you know, to try to say that that's the best place for a 3,800 square foot office building that really was built to be more of a temporary building, we're going to be looking at, you know, what's the highest and best use there, and go through an RFP process for some type of commercial development. We'll go through a public process, look at an RFP, and then we'd have to look at where we would want to put some type of, where town hall would go. One of the leading candidates for that location would actually be right out here in this parking area, connected into this existing building here, into the 1,200 square foot office space above, and we already own the property. So that's one of the options, but we want to go through a process and really engage the community to kind of go through that. The other is the neighborhood regional retail. You know, we have Lowe's, we have CVS, and then on the other corner, on the northeast corner of Carefree Highway and Cave Creek Road, is our largest opportunity for what we'll call more regional and neighborhood retail. That's going to really draw in from a 20-30 minute commute, reaching all the way to the Tatum Ranch area, Dove Valley, and it really brings in a net import of revenue from the local community at large. And that's going to just be focused on those types of retail services with the direct revenue, you know, potential of about 1.2 million. You know, probably on the conservative side if we can really maximize our opportunity there. And then the last part of we're looking at is just enhancing the overall business environment, and that's working with our existing business community. You know, we're working on putting a little merchant association together. We have a restaurant association. We're working with the art galleries. We have the Third Thursday Art Walk. And then it's just being able to connect with businesses and have a better dialogue with businesses, better communications that can go out to businesses. And one of the things I think is going to be critical for us is, and I think it's time that we start working with Cave Creek. We have together as a region so much more to offer than individually. And so, you know, whether it's Cowboys and Caviar, however we want to promote something like that, I think it's just a better way to promote the area. And there's so many other assets like the Desert Foothills Theater that exist in the area. And so, and then ultimately, you know, then working on just the overall PR marketing and advertising strategy and working with those businesses. And if there's ways that we can help leverage private investment and private engagement and involvement into that, the better. And so if we can organize the businesses and we can look to share in on public resources, the more private resources we can enable, I think the more successful we'll be. And then the last thing I'd like to talk about, because it was on the original plan, and is the idea of the 45-acre state land parcel. And you know, originally we took the assessment about how we can generate the most revenue. We were looking at the idea of that potentially being some type of tourist base. But when you really look at the opportunity there, and when we listened to the community and what people were saying, you know, this was a few years ago, as we went through that, I think we need more conversation around that, and I think the opportunity to go through the general plan update is a really good opportunity to do that. If the community chooses that they want to have some type of economic development element to that at any level, you know, I'm always willing to do what I can to make sure that that's successful. It's something that should be considered, obviously, as we look at that, because there's things that that could be done there. But that's up to the community and up to this commission and up to the council and the leadership. So that's pretty much what I'll be working on over the next 24 months. And if there's any particular questions, I can answer those. And what I'll be seeking tonight is some type of recommendation, but I'm not in a rush to get that recommendation. We'll be working on these things. And but I'd like to take something back to the council and have the same conversation at the council level as well, because I know they're just finalizing and formulating really their policy agenda. But I'm past the 24-month period, and I think it's good for the public to know what we're doing. And so that's why I think it's important to get this in front of you guys today.
You got any questions? Wait. I do have 4 public speaking, 5 requests. So we'll start off with Jerry Wetta again. And I would like to emphasize that it is 3 minutes.
Well, that's more than I get at home, so it'll ought to work. I just have a couple of comments on this 21-3, the general plan text amendment. Is that what you'll be voting on tonight?
We're actually not voting on this, are we?
Was that, did I get,
No, the general plan text amendment.
is that an amendment that will be voted on tonight, or is that how, maybe I didn't understand it correctly?
Chairman, Mr. Wetta, no, that, if you're showing us the text for the general plan land use at the northwest corner, that's
Yes.
already been approved.
That was
We're not
approved.
here to vote on anything tonight. We're here to talk about aspects of the economic development plan as Steve just presented it, and if there's any discussion or recommendations that the commission has for council.
Okay, no, this was what I thought that that you were working on tonight. Maybe I misunderstood.
Yeah, so,
Excuse me.
Mr. Wetta, yeah, so that, we're not working on that tonight, but just to answer your question regarding that, so the general plan amendment was approved, but the zoning has not been approved for that site yet.
Okay, yeah.
So at some point, a developer will come back and provide, we'll seek zoning for that particular use, and then we can go through the whole public process on that.
Will they be using these as kind of guidelines,
Exactly, those would be the guidelines for the zoning.
well,
yes.
I do have a couple of comments on that then. First of all, it says a destination hospitality resort. That would be quite open, that it could be a lot of different things. My understanding originally that it would be more of a casita type situation as opposed to a Hampton Inn.
Correct, it's not gonna be a Hampton Inn.
Okay, and it has on here that an adequate buffer. Who determines what's adequate? And because that goes to the west where there are houses and also to the north. And then, let's see, yeah, cohesive design,
Mr. Wetter, we're getting to the end here.
pardon me?
We're getting to the end of the 3 minutes.
Okay, cohesive
Well, I
design.
took some of his time, so.
Well, I don't wanna,
And I
get
want
me.
to emphasize also that this is for your speaking, for everyone speaking, but there are no comebacks or whatnot from any of the staff.
Yeah, I understand. I just wanted to voice my opinion, so maybe give you something to
We
think
appreciate
about,
that,
you know?
yes.
Because we went into a lot of things that really, I think in the past, there hasn't been a lot of public input. There is now. Most of the town I've found to be, all of the staff, very, very cooperative and everything. But I think that the P and Z has an important role in presenting stuff to that, and that's why I wanted to see what some of these things, when they call about very low density and design and so forth, I think that's important because I don't think we ended up with the best colors and so forth.
Thank you for your comments.
You bet.
And next will be Connie Gillespie.
Good afternoon, happy Monday. 3 minutes, right? I'll be less than that.
You can state your name.
Yes, my name's Connie Glaspie. I reside at 3067 Ironwood in Carefree. 21 years ago, I was introduced to this beautiful area. My husband proposed to me, right? A lot's had changed in the time. We've resided here for now 5 years. We've lived in beautiful places, but this was the place that we wanted to call home. And so, like time, you can't buy it, you can't get it back. And our beautiful outdoor scenery here, we have to keep it precious to us, right? Because once we squander it, and if we sell it for greed, we don't get it back. So we have to really think about it. As an avid outdoor person, I hike, I mountain bike, all over Cave Creek, all over Scottsdale. I don't have a place to bike here, right? Other than in the neighborhoods. I'm really connected with the bike owner here. And so during February, they had a great rental season and all the people were from Boulders, right? But they were riding in neighborhoods and throughout the streets. So it'd be really great to take that 45-acre parcel and do something nice with it. Something that continuously imagine a future of recreation, wellness, and green spaces and open spaces, right? That attract people that want to spend money here, that want to come here, and maybe someone proposes to them and they end up here, right? And so with that, I ask that when you do all your research, we don't just look at development of retail, development of town hall, although we need to invest in our infrastructure to keep it up for generations to come, but also to think about what we're leaving behind for many of your grandchildren and great-grandchildren, right? And for the future. So I'm here in support of making sure we preserve that 45 acres, to have it be a destination so that it can be on my trail map when I want to hike, like Black Mountain, which I've done once a month, Pinnacle Peak, and others. Let's do something special that everybody can be proud of, that all of your names can be on that. That's why I'm here today. So thank you.
Next speaker I have is Wendy Mathis.
Hello, my name is Wendy Mattis, and I'm a Carefree resident. I want to make you all aware of an organization called carefreepark.org. The mission of this organization is to preserve the 47.815 acres on Cave Creek Road across from the airport as permanent open space. This acreage is Carefree's last remaining parcel of untouched land. It is beautiful, pristine Upper Sonoran desert land. It's a wildlife habitat and a wildlife corridor, and it's home to innumerable stately old saguaro. Our neighbors to the south and west of us have done exemplary work in preserving land with the regional parks and hiking trails. In Carefree, unfortunately, we have not. So we have to drive to Scottsdale or Carefree if we want to hike or walk our dogs or ride our bikes. We would like to see our town finally place importance on preserving this last piece of land before it's too late. So I echo her comments, although I didn't get proposed to there. This is a treasure, and we need to protect it. So I encourage everyone to visit the website carefreepark.org and join our Alliance to Save the Land. Thank you.
Next speaker I have is John Mattis. You got to wrestle over this, what you're gonna say in the House?
I echo what she says, but I'm going on a different route.
All right.
John Mattis, Carefree. Transparency and truth was a focal point at the public statement made at the last council meeting. In December of 2020, Resolution 2020-11 was passed. The council was to create an Economic Development Advisory Board with a 2-year term, as you currently are going to be going to a 4-year term. But all the commissions had a 2-year term at that time. That was never done. In January 2021 council meeting, the Economic Development Director introduced an ETAP group to the council. No council action was necessary. If you want to go back and take a look at the agenda item, that's exactly what it says. This was for the strategic plan objective number 4, to maximize the town center. There were no public notices, no public meetings, no notes, no recordings, no anything. So what was done in 18 months before the Planning and Zoning Commission got that? I don't know. Nobody knows. In February 13, 2022, I sent a cease and desist letter to the council and copied the Planning and Zoning Commission on this work plan because of the violations of the Arizona meeting law. I have a copy of that letter, if anyone would like a copy of it. And also, I have a copy of the physical impact analysis for Carefree and Cave Creek Corner. At the time, there was no comment or response from anybody to my letter. There have now been 2 developers interested in Carefree Highway Cave Creek Road Northeast Corner. Empire met the Councilman Geiger and HOA president at the time, Johnson. Empire was advised only a commercial development would be accepted. Empire dropped out after conceptual drawings, and a lot of work, time, and money. Then Thompson Swift came along 18 months ago. They've done a lot of work. Conceptual drawings, meetings with Councilman Geiger and now Councilman Johnson, other residents, P&Z director, and the ED director. They were all given the economic and physical analysis report showing their proposed mixed-use plan was the only viable solution for this corner. And that is delineated in this 19-page plan that was given to everybody in the town, obviously not the Planning and Zoning Commission. And all commercial development would not be viable, according to this analysis. Just look at the town center. In fact, walk around and take a look at how many signs are vacant. How many people are renting office space? It's not a viable opportunity. Councilman Geiger and Johnson both said they would not accept Thompson Thrift proposal because of the high-end duplexes at the back of the complex.
Mr. Mattis, we're running out of time.
Okay. I have 1 sentence to read. Is that okay? Thank you.
Yes.
This is a quote. See who can guess what it's from. Governments are instituted among men deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. I trust most know where that statement came from. And just so you know, I do not consent. Thank you for your time. If anyone would like what I explained, I have packets here.
Next speaker, Stephanie Barber.
I'm also speaking in favor of the 45 acres. state land currently. The top reasons that I think most people come to Arizona to vacation are for the weather, the outdoor recreation, and also the Sonoran Desert views. Right now, tourists don't really have a safe place to enjoy outdoor recreation and Carefree. If you want to play golf, you get in the car and you go to Scottsdale. If you want to hike or bike, you get in the car and you go to Cave Creek or Scottsdale. Savano actually sends their guests that want to bike around town into the Boulders community so that they have a safe place away from traffic, even though that's a private gated community. These guests have to wind up hoisting their bikes over rocks, boulders, and walls to get into the boulders. So I don't feel that we can quite proclaim that Carefree will be a tourist destination until we're actually offering things tourists come to Arizona for. Carefree has a 45-acre, beautiful unspoiled desert with gorgeous expansive views of the mountains. It's within easy walking distance of the Hampton Inn, of Savano, and it could be turned into a really charming hiking and biking park. A 45-acre park is environmentally sensitive and an economically smart use of this land. It would complement the downtown revitalization effort as opposed to competing with the revitalization effort. Okay, thank you.
And our next speaker I have is Ariane Buser.
Yeah, Ariane. Hi.
Ariane?
I knew it was going to be me because everyone always struggles with my name. Hi.
Except for I have a lot of fun with that one, don't
Yes,
you?
I know. People usually do. Anyway, my name is Ariane Buser. Thank you so much for letting me speak today. I'll be speaking on just a couple of quick items. So first is in opposition of developing another resort down at Tom Darlington and Carefree Highway. As you know, we currently have 3 resorts within an 8.8 square mile area that is Carefree. That is a lot of rooms. I actually did some research and I actually called around to those locations this weekend on Saturday during the so-called high season, and there was a lot of vacancy within those 3 resorts. We have our Hampton Inn, which is already the budget option, if you will, and then Savannah and the Boulders, which are more the luxurious resorts. But in those 3 resorts right there within the 8.8 square mile area of Carefree, that is way beyond the amount of rooms that we need in order to support people that come to this area. Another thing I just wanted to point out too is that the Pedregal, which is right across the street from that corner that you're looking at, has been vacant for a while. That space could be revitalized to use in a different way, but why not use that location that is already kind of built out in terms of the structure instead of tearing down old Grove Saguaro and disrupting a neighborhood that is on the corner of Tom Darlington and Carefree Highway. The other point I just want to mention is, again, in support of the 45-acre area. I'm a recent new resident to Carefree, and I chose this place because of its natural beauty and the access to the outdoors. When I heard that they were proposing to bulldoze Old Grove Saguaro and essentially destroy the natural area that is that 45-acre space, that really disheartened me. I came from California, I'm sorry, but there they bulldoze every single open, beautiful space to put up yet more tract homes, concrete-looking buildings that do not mesh well with the town. I think we can all agree that the Hampton Inn that they put up doesn't really mesh with the downtown. That was misled to the community as being a 2-story boutique hotel. The condos they're being built right behind us, what an eyesore. Those are they don't even mesh well with the area. If you take yet another beautiful open space and you put in more tract homes and things that do not support the natural beauty of this area, you will lose your town forever, and that would be a travesty. Thank you very much.
Colleen Rose Scurry? How is the proper spelling of your last name?
It's S-C-U-R-T-I, Italian,
okay.
Scurti. I know my writing's horrible, sorry. I hate to follow all these great speakers because I did not come in with a planned speech. I do talk fast, so I'll be under the 3 minutes. Mine are just general comments in relation to you guys trying to be transparent and wanting development ideas. And I'm all for smart development, but I'm not just for development's sake. And I do think that we need to look at, okay, we wanted to revitalize the Sundial. We know we've got some vacancies. We know we've got some work needed to be done here. El Pedregal, it was fully occupied at one point in time. Recession came, things happened, it's not now. It's in need of help. So I feel like we need to look at some of these areas that are not fully utilized. Let's work on them first. And then we can go and look to expand to these other areas. I am concerned with certain design ideas. We all know the Hampton doesn't look great. These new condos, I was hoping they were going to look better. We've got a lot of gifted, artistic people out there that could really help with these designs and make it look better. There was an article in, I think it was the Sonora News, describing the Hampton Inn as another boutique hotel. If anybody in here thinks that that's what a boutique hotel is, I'm concerned when you say you want to do another one. So anyways, and then I am in favor of doing joint ventures with Cave Creek. I love Cave Creek. We love Carefree. Combining those two together, I think is a great idea, and I think a lot of people would be for that. Last thing is, I know we're spending a lot of money on signs. And signs, it's always for safety and for save lives, blah, 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 blah. It's not. And it's like we're becoming this big city in this small little town that is a rural town. And when you drive around now at night, I almost get in accidents. When I came through the roundabout on the other side over there, there's like 9 signs that light up as you come up to it. Now, I get it if you want to fresh paint the white crosswalk and you want one that someone's crossing the street and they push the button and lights and it goes. I don't think we need 6 at that one thing. So everything now is getting so, oh my God, turn here, get into the lat lane, move over. I don't think we need to spend the money on that. Let's use that money for other things the town needs. And let's really think about that and look at when they keep saying we're saving lives. I haven't talked to one person that's ever said that that's what's needed to save any lives there. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. And Melissa Price.
Hi. I did not come prepared to speak either. So this is just going to be from my heart. For those of you that don't know me, I was on town council for 5 years. Worked economic development for a while. So I appreciate what you're going through. I think it's wonderful that the 2 towns might be trying to develop something together here. It's always been very difficult in the past. I'd love it if the chamber was more involved. I understand they're trying to get a new director, and so maybe that will greatly help the 2 towns work together again. I would, just as a resident, like to see, I don't mind if that 45 acre site across from the airport is developed, if it's done well, and I think it could be, including all the wonderful things that people have mentioned here today, including maybe a dog park, which we've been hollering for a long time. Got to read my writing now. I just thought all the speakers today, it was wonderful to hear people become involved again. When I was on council, you didn't hear very much from people. So this is wonderful, and thank you, everyone.
Well, thank the speakers. Excellent input.
Chairman Cross, can I just clarify one thing, or a couple
Yes.
things? One, El Pedregal is not in the town of Carefree, so there's nothing that really we can do with that. It's actually in the city of Scottsdale. And then, so there's a couple things that are like that, but that is one clarification I'd like to make. And then the other one is we're working on a circulation plan, and as part of that circulation plan, it's to look at Tom Darlington and Cave Creek Road, at least adjacent to the town center area, to be able to provide more multi-use pathways for bicycles, walkways and pathways, and how that could eventually connect into maybe a larger trail system for the town is up to the community, but that's one of the things that we're looking at, as well as looking at all the jogs and that go around and on those particular roads when we look at all the crosswalks, and how do we put a comprehensive plan in place that we aspire to for what that looks like in the future. That's going to be the most successful way to be able to implement that kind of circulation. So those are the things that are part of what we are going to be working on as part of our strategy. And I just wanted to say that, and we're not, there's nothing that's been full 100% decided. That's stuff we're doing over the next 3 to 6 months, and really would love these people that are here in this room to be engaged in that process, and they're more than welcome to be a part of that. And when it comes to the 45 acres, again, it's going to be, we have a long way to go on that one. And that is owned by the state land, so we don't own that. That would have to be acquired, it would have to be developed, and then when you look at the costs for operating something on there, there's an operational cost associated with, so you gotta look at the scope and size of those things. But I'm not opposed to any of that stuff and how we can implement recreation all together into the town and how we implement that aspect of it, because I do think it's important for economic development that we have that component to the community,
Thanks, Steve.
so.
Well, as I understand, there's no decisions being made in this. It's strictly information tonight, right? Stacy?
If you wanted to make a recommendation, if you're fine with this conversation, we can continue it for another meeting, or if you want to push it over to council, we can have then take your recommendation for that, so.
Any thoughts? Yes. Push it over to council?
Yeah.
How am I, Peter?
With your permission, Mr. Chairman, I'm looking at your, the resolution 2201, and, I guess under the Exhibit A, I'm looking at the development of, on the first page, number 1, our estimated time frame for developing that was 60, by this resolution, was 60% by 2024. Are we on any kind of path that'll get us to 60% by 2024?
Possibly not. So yeah, so we can, as we go through this process, start looking at what those adjusted timeframes are. You know, obviously through a pandemic, it was tricky to figure out what those were, but at the time we had, the Eisenberg companies were looking at the one corner, and then, so there was there was somebody in for site plan approval on that particular site at the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then the northwest corner of Carefree Highway to Tom Darlington, 80% by 2025, are we on track for that?
I would say that that's doable.
Okay. And then, 50% for the state land parcel by 2026?
I think that's gonna be really something that we're gonna, again, when we went back through, we re-ratcheted what we thought that is gonna happen on that site, so that's gonna be up for discussion for this particular, body and this commission and the community.
Okay, and then town center, 80% by 2024? That seems a stretch.
It's a little wishful thinking, yeah, so, but it's not to say that we can't be working on things we're working on. I mean, when we look at the RFP process,
Right.
and we look at some of the things that we're looking at, I think we can get started on the signage pieces, and so it depends on what we define, what we want to accomplish as part of that.
Well, but I think that those kind of, this was the work plan and the objectives.
Mhm.
And those were set out as pretty concrete objectives that I like. At least we can talk about what went wrong or where we were going.
Sure, absolutely.
And I don't see anything like that in the current plan. And I was wondering if we could amend the current plan with some kind of targets out there. so
Absolutely.
we know where we're going and
Okay.
when we expect to get there.
Fair enough, yeah, definitely.
The, let me just see, so in this 21-22 work plan, we were talking about, on the second page, prepare options for potential town hall relocation development at town site. Have we made significant progress on that?
For the town hall site?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the biggest progress on that was getting the redevelopment plan approved.
Okay.
Because we couldn't really go through the process without it in place.
Okay. And then, under the Engaged Town Center property, and we're gonna come back to this on the next plan, but recommend zoning changes that allow for more functional and efficient development was one of the objectives. I like that, but I
Correct.
guess my question is, do we have a timeline for that?
So-
I'm gonna ask you for that in the current plan.
So it's in the current plan. should-
A timeline?
But not a timeline. We could put a timeline down for that, though. But
Okay.
24 months is the timeline, at least
I
for
just,
now.
to me, just from where I come,
Yep.
you do a work plan,
Yep.
The work plan has milestones,
Absolutely.
and I noticed that there, just to me, the way that I'm associated with this, I didn't see any time zones in there.
Sure.
Or timelines in there. And I'm not beating you up for the sake of beating you up, I'm beating you up because it's fun. No.
I know you. You know what, that's the thing, is the idea is to make this is better, just make it better. I mean,
No,
I'm
but
not,
I do think that, you know, I do think, and as your cover memo said, that this was supposed to be in your summary, this is the tactical plan to carry out a larger economic development goals. Tactical means that, you know, the generals say, we're gonna land in Normandy.
correct,
And the tactical plan is, you're gonna take that tree,
absolutely.
you know, and I don't see a whole lot of trees being taken in terms of timeline. I mean, you have good objectives, I don't
Yep.
dispute those, but I would just like to see milestones in here so that
Okay.
as we go through the 2-year plan, we say, oh, we're gonna be at 30%, but we're at 40%, or we're at 10%, just so that we can measure our progress through that. The other thing, just, again, I'm fastidious about this, I think that all the documents that come to us ought to have page numbers and a date on them.
Okay,
And
Yeah.
this one doesn't, so that as we go through time, I don't know when this was passed out or when it wasn't passed out.
okay, fair enough.
So, in your mind's eye right now, do you have an idea for when an RFP for the town hall site might be developed?
So it's something I'm working on right now.
Okay.
I've
Within
been,
a year?
it's gonna be, yeah, so the time frame for that is to have something probably by the end of spring, you know, or beginning of summer. You know, it's tough in this town to try to, because when you get to summertime, everything kind of slows down significantly for public input. So you know, I'll try to have something ready by then, but if it's not, I don't want to make any big decisions in the summertime, so we can try to bring that back into the fall.
I'm with you on that.
Yep.
And one thing that we talked about rather extensively during the village redevelopment plan was zoning and design review changes or packets or whatever we were going to do. Do we have a timeline for that?
That's something that Stacy and I need to work out.
Okay.
Yep.
But I think that would be, especially we have the general plan coming up.
Yep.
And zoning, I've never been through a significant change in zoning regulations, but I can suspect that they're engaging.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the bigger issue,
Design review will be, what one man's art is another man's trash, you know,
yeah.
Thank you.
right?
Yep.
Did I hear you say, in your on your PowerPoint, the intersection of, Cave Creek and Carefree, that could generate 1.2 million? I mean, conceptually?
Yeah, that's about the target that we put on it.
Okay. Continue to work with interested developers on that. I'm assuming that we're talking about that corner.
That's the corner, yeah, so,
How many interested developers do we have? I've just recently heard of Thompson Thrift.
yeah, so Thompson Thrift, from what I understand, well, I know, had it under contract for a while, and they have promoted a site plan that is not consistent with the current zoning to some of the community members. And so they've come in and they've talked to the town, and, you know, we've told them what we know about the site, which is, what they've proposed is not consistent with the current zoning. But,
Can you just explain to me my recollection is that corner and the other corner both are, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, but we're gonna go on for a minute. Are special planning areas.
yes,
Does that mean that they are without zoning until zoning comes, or help educate me
Yeah.
on what the layers are there?
so there's the general plan, which, in the general plan, in our general plan, one of the designations you can get is a special planning area.
Okay.
And a special planning area allows you to have a little bit more, we'll call it customization to the commercial zoning category.
Okay.
So you can be a little bit more specific with key pieces of property, because they can have
So
wide.
is that a zoning designation?
So it's a general plan designation, then there's a specific zoning that can go over the top of that. And when we look at the site on the northeast corner of Cave Creek Road and Carefree Highway, that has zoning on it. And with the zoning for special planning area, you generally are gonna wanna have a site plan that's approved right along with the zoning. So for right now, there is zoning approved for commercial for that property, and then office just north of the wash along Cave Creek Road. And then there's a site plan that's been defined for that specific site. So that it already has the entitlement for commercial on it. So that's why when another developer has come in and has requested something that has a different element to it, say
Like
it's
residential.
like residential, they would have to go through this process to get that,
To come back through here.
to come back through here and rezone that particular site. Now, the general plan, the resort site on Carefree Highway and Tom Darlington, we only went through the general planning process, and we still have to go through the zoning process.
Because that's zoned residential, 1 acre.
And it's zone 1 acre,
Yeah.
yep,
Okay.
right now.
Okay, so both of those things are not gonna happen until they come back here.
Correct.
Okay, I'm just trying to get,
But to say that somebody could come and build commercial on the site, the northwest, or northeast corner of Cave Creek and Carefree Highway.
as long as it conforms to that site plan?
Correct.
Or, okay.
Or is, yeah, if generally it conforms to the site plan or it conforms to that zoning.
And I've just heard a lot about this site plan, but don't know anything about it, never seen it. It happened before my time. Was that formally adopted then, so that if somebody has a different idea, that has to get revised and resubmitted, or, I'm lost in the process.
So when the developer came in, and I don't understand, maybe Stacy can correct me, but when Empire came in and bought it, I think they intended to be a developer of the site, and then they chose not to develop the site. For whatever reason, they chose not to develop the site. They're a big company, they got a lot of other projects they're working on. I wasn't here when that decision was made. When I came in, a guy named Craig Eisenberg Companies, was looking to take just the corner piece. So if you look along Carefree Highway, there's two lots that make up the acreage there.
Right.
He was looking at doing just the corner with about a 70 to 90,000 square foot commercial center, and the idea was to bring in a little grocery anchored center with some restaurants and pads and shops. And then he ended up falling out. So he spent a lot of time looking at it, and then it's a tough site to develop. You have the wash there, the way the roadways are put together. You have a weird angle on Cave Creek Road, which causes an inward angle versus an outward, and it takes away a lot of usable space in that corner. So he was already fighting against those things, and then when the pandemic came along and he'd already spent a lot of money on design and site, and the construction costs and just went through the roof, he just was having a tough time penciling it out. I think he had a hard time walking away from it because he had so much time invested in it. And then Thompson Thrift came in and then subsequently put that under contract.
Now, who owns the dirt?
Empire.
Empire still does?
Mhm.
Okay. I'm just going through the work plan here and taking a look at it. The enhanced business environment, number 4, I would really like to see a little bit more specificity in terms of what we hope to accomplish in the next 24 months.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
We'll all see it eventually because it still has to come through here.
Yeah, no, I'm just talking about the work plan and continue to work, enhance the business environment. I'd like to continue to reach out to businesses. How many businesses are we gonna reach out to, by when?
Sure.
You know,
No problem.
what the message is gonna be. And
Yeah,
then-
so part of what I try to do with these work plans is keep them short because in government we tend to get documents that are huge, and sometimes I get a little bit too short, so I'll add stuff in them.
Well, okay, you can lengthen it for me. The last thing, just for the record, to correct this, in the historical context that you have here, in the 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph, about halfway down, the line that begins with Hampton, and you keep talking about the northeast corner
Yeah.
of Tom Darlington and Carefree Drive. Isn't it the northwest
It is,
corner?
yeah.
Okay.
That's a typo.
Well, I would say that that would be true, except that it also appeared under objectives and strategy, and it also appeared as the first line of the next page. So, and.
It's been corrected in the bill.
Okay, well, I just wanna make sure that it is corrected. Objectives and strategy.
I thought that's what I was always going to give you to comment on was
Well,
a
well,
typo.
I know, you wanted to throw just some bait
A
out
little bit in there,
for me.
yeah.
Yes, I understand. And explore
My
the
son is brutal.
creation of a destination tourism board. Could you just elaborate on that just a bit as to what they might do, or?
Sure.
might
One of the
not
things
do?
that I've been tossing around, and I wanted to, as we look through how to best market the area is, and best utilize public resources for being able to promote the area. Is there an opportunity for us to work together with the resort, with the Hampton, with local businesses, with merchant groups, and kind of put together a board that actually, so if you go to a lot of communities, they have tourism boards. Is there a way that we can take a board, look at the public funds that we put towards marketing and those types of promotions, and then is there a way that we can leverage private resources as well and mix those two together in that capacity where we can be more effective in doing that? That's one of the things I think I'd like to be interested in working towards in something that's in the interest of this group, to see if it, again, putting another board and commission together in Carefree. It's a small town, so how many do you put together? But at the same time,
Soon everybody will be on a board and a commission.
yeah, but the idea is to most effectively use the resources that we have at hand.
I understand. I
Yep.
guess my biggest takeaway from your plan is I would just like to see a lot more specificity, a lot more my own personal preference.
Sure.
A lot more milestones. I think that the resolution, the 2022 or whatever, 21, 22, that plan had more than this one does, and I'd rather go towards even more than that than less than that. But
Perfect.
that's my view.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And I'm willing to do that, yeah. I think it's
Anything
important
else?
to put it in there.
There's a group of residents that met with Thompson Thrift, and we have some updated information if we're allowed to share it.
Well, would you like to?
30 seconds or less?
Well, frankly, I would rather hear from Thompson Thrift.
Okay.
I mean,
I'm sure they would.
otherwise, we're playing telephone, okay? They told you, you told somebody, somebody told us, and we don't know what the facts are.
So you would like to hear from
Well,
Thompson Thrift?
at the appropriate time. I don't know it's the appropriate time.
Well, they've been trying to speak with you all for 18 months.
So
No.
just to clarify, Thompson Thrift has not submitted anything into the town for any kind of approval whatsoever. So nothing's been submitted. So there's nothing for us as a town to act upon until they submit.
Because because Councilman Geiger and Councilman Johnson denied their plan, because it didn't meet the conceptual site plan. And the conceptual site plan they didn't follow because they hired Edward D. Pollock, a market research analysis, financial analysis, and you can't make that work with that conceptual site plan. You can't do all of the things that need to be done, rerouting the wash, all of the infrastructure. It financially doesn't
Mr.
work.
Chairman, point of order.
Yeah, wait, thank you, but so much of this is still out in front yet. The zoning's intact, so now it all has to come back in again, so.
Well, with all due respect, you need to have the facts.
Yes,
so we need
exactly.
to be factual.
No, none of us do. All we have is the zoning on it. We haven't seen any plans.
Chairman, Commission, I would just like to add, I don't agree with what Ms. Barber is presenting. Anybody who is interested in looking at a piece of property and developing a piece of property, depending upon the planning process, goes through the first step, which is a pre-application meeting. That is the only time that we have spoken to Thompson Thrift. What we do at those meetings is we look at their proposals, we evaluate it, we provide them with feedback only in the regards to how to go through the process,
Yeah.
as well as how it applies to or currently meets certain requirements that are in place or not. Just as Steve had mentioned, what they were looking to do when we met with them with their pre-application information, which they've made public now to, for example, Ms. Barber. All we've done is evaluate that information, provide them with a list and a sort of a process guideline, and we haven't heard from them since. So it's correct that there has been nothing for anybody to act on. No council members, no commissioners, no staff. Nobody's acted on anything or are looking at anything at this time.
Okay, so our,
At the town level.
okay,
I may have talked to them personally.
our objective here, number 3, is just to have listened and everything else. There's no passing on or voting on anything, or nothing, as I understand, right?
Well, it sounds like Peter had some input for Steve, and I don't know if you
Yeah.
want to
We
come
have
back.
input, but that was the whole thing, was recommendations, right?
Yeah, but it looks like,
We'd have, there's nothing for us to vote on, right?
well, there's nothing for you to vote on. I mean, what I can do is I can come back and bring back this document with the recommendations from Commissioner Burns, and then that way we can review those additional things and get more. What I'd like to do is eventually get a recommendation to the council of these objectives that are and we can agree on the milestones and those types of things. So this is perfect. You know, and
There was
your
some
new
excellent-
boards.
There was some excellent input there tonight, so yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
want to bring the recommendations, and we can take one more look at it and send it off to council.
Yep. And with being a new commission, it was just I didn't want to hit you cold with a bunch of stuff, so we're slowly working our way through this. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Any announcements?
No announcements.
With all that? we have a motion. Huh?
You move and I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, folks. Hopefully some of this is clearer in the future.